It's kind of a given that horror movies are going to be dark affairs. I mean, it would be pretty disappointing if they weren't, wouldn't it? As audiences flock to these films to revel in the macabre, the gory, and the twisted. Of course, there are levels to this, and as a result, we can still be taken by surprise when we choose to watch a horror film only to be suckered in by a narrative that's way darker than we expected. So with that in mind, I'm Josh from What Culture Horror, and these are 10 horror movies way darker than advertised. Number 10, Antlers. Despite an incredible cast led by Kerry Russell and Jesse Plemons, this atmospheric Wendigo horror failed to find a real audience, and it's hard to not point at the marketing as the reason why. The first trailer was just kinda generic, making it appear as nothing more than a standard elevated horror piece, rather than focusing on the film's darker themes or creature feature element. And that's a disservice, because Antlers is one of the gnarliest monster movies in some time. While it takes a while to get to the money shots, the Wendigos are fully brought to life in all of their bony, inhuman glory. The kills are visceral, the gore comes in spades, and it isn't afraid to go hard on its pulpier elements. However, the real darkness comes from the lead characters, played by the aforementioned two actors. Plemons and Russell play siblings reconnecting after years apart, both still reeling from the actions of their abusive father. It's a dark, dark history that the film explores, but this human tragedy balances the more outlandish monster movie qualities. Number 9, Last Night in Soho. If you watch the trailer for Last Night in Soho, you might not realize that it's a proper hardcore horror movie at all. That's by design though, as Edgar Wright's latest is at once a coming-of-age teen drama, a murder mystery, a 60s light fantasy movie, and yes, a straight-up horror. Following a university student called Elise who unlocks the power to visit the swinging 60s after moving to London, the young woman finds herself inhabiting the body of would-be starlet Sandy. What starts as something of an empowering fantasy that sees Elise more confident in herself soon turns sour though, as it appears that Sandy was murdered and the crime was never solved. Soon, what's a dream and what's reality is blurred as the student finds herself hunted by faceless men chasing her in the streets, while also having nightmares about this vicious murder. As a result, the third act of Last Night in Soho functions as essentially just pure horror, leaning on slasher tropes and revealing itself, a lot like Malignant, to be half a giallo film in disguise. Throw in darker content than advertised in the story itself, particularly a mishandled subplot about sex workers, and Last Night in Soho has a lot more bite than initially appears. Number 8, Possessor. Brandon Cronenberg movies always revel in dark subject matter, but Possessor still caught everyone by surprise when it dropped in 2020. The trailer gave little away, simply explaining that we were in for a psychological thriller about killers who inhabit the minds and bodies of other people to take out their targets. It was an awesome trailer all told, but one that reveled more in the weirdness of the story rather than the darkness of it. This was ultimately a smart move, as Possessor's surprise and mean streak only made it even more impactful. On the one hand, this is a violent movie. Audiences are subjected to a lot of blood and even a couple mutilations here and there. On the other hand, it's also incredibly frank and uncomfortable in its depiction of sex, with one extended sequence showing a man spying on a couple full frontal boning. It's explicit in a way that horror movies often aren't, and it kinda makes you itch. The themes of identity give way to the darkest content though. Our protagonists struggle to maintain a sense of self while inhabiting the bodies of so many people, leads the audience down twisted avenues and eventually to a climax that's brutally devastating. Number 7, Impetigore. Impetigore is a great horror straight out of Indonesia, and it's also one that plays its cards close to its chest. Ostensibly, it's about two women who venture to an isolated village in the hopes of reconnecting with their past and ultimately inheriting a house that they can sell for some quick cash. Not only is this plan ominous from the start though, hell, they only know about the village because a dude from there tried to kill one of the women, Maya, but when they arrive it's clear that they're not welcome. Something about the whole place just feels off, not least because of the countless graves that belong to children. Eventually, it's revealed that the town has been cursed, and as a result, every baby there is born without skin. Rather than subject them to a life of pain, the babies then have to be killed, leaving the entire village desperate and traumatized, and rightly so. That in itself is just the beginning of this twisted tale though, which somehow gets bleaker and bloodier the further down the rabbit hole it goes. Number 6, In Fabric. In Fabric is about a dress that kills people, so how dark could it possibly be? Well, despite its pretty hilarious premise, this is a movie that matches its comedic tone with a truly disturbed one. Yes, it tells three tales of people who buy a murderous red dress that leads to their misfortunes. Yes, it has a man who is obsessed with washing machines, and yes, there's a store in there that's probably run by a coven of witches. Like all the best horror comedies though, In Fabric finds the perfect balance between its two genres and isn't afraid to dole out real tragic consequences to its victims. It spins a dark fantasy world where regular everyday people face unimaginable horrors and does it all with a good helping of callousness. As a result, this is a movie that's definitely going to be divisive, which is probably why the trailer didn't go all in on its weirder tendencies. Number 5. The Devil's Candy. With a lot of movies on this list, they've either been billed as horror comedies with the emphasis on the comedy, or marketed as more mainstream than they actually are. With The Devil's Candy though, audiences knew they were in for some pretty twisted things, but still had no idea just how dark it was going to be. Directed by Sean Byrne, who helmed the 2009 cult classic, and similarly surprisingly grisly The Loved Ones, The Devil's Candy is a brutal haunted house story that eventually devolves into real human horrors. Whispers in a house sends artists who occupy it crazy, which doesn't bode well for Father Jesse and his wife and daughter who have just moved in. A vibrant, surreal kaleidoscope of terror, The Devil's Candy is full of striking images. And not just the ones that come from Jesse's demented paintings, which are themselves inspired by the presence he's feeling in the house. The Shining, with a heavy metal makeover, Byrne's flick is a true hidden gem, and a dark, grisly one at that. Number 4. Come to Daddy. When Elijah Wood is involved in a horror movie, you know it's going to be strange and, more than likely, pretty good. A twisted black comedy that boasts some of the most stomach-churning gross-out moments in recent memory. It would be criminal to spoil its tightly wound knot of twists and subversions here, but its marketing essentially sold it as the story of a man, played by Wood, who reconnects with his father and discovers that he's been hiding a pretty big secret. That, however, is pretty much just the first 20 minutes of this film, and the trailers did a good job of hiding the real story lurking underneath. From unflinching depictions of graphic violence to the use of pretty much every bodily fluid that you can imagine and probably not imagine, Come to Daddy is a truly disgusting movie in all the best ways. It's not strictly body horror, but goddamn does it give the best in that genre a run for their money. Number 3. Mother. Mother immediately made a name for itself for being one of the gnarliest mainstream horror movies in a long time. Starring Jennifer Lawrence and directed by Darren Aronofsky, movie fans expected something deeply weird and unsettling from this. I mean, this was the same filmmaker who gave the world Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan after all, but you're lying if you expected just how dark the film would eventually get. And yeah, I don't often tell the audience flat out that they're fibbing, but in this case, I feel it in my bones. I couldn't believe what I was seeing in the theater. Starting initially as a social horror with Lawrence's titular mother becoming overwhelmed as her husband begins inviting strangers into her home, which to be fair I'd be fuming about as well, things take a catastrophic turn in the final reel. With the whole movie already functioning on dream logic, by the end the home is completely overrun with people all demanding to see the mother's newborn baby like they're Werner Herzog in The Mandalorian. From this moment on, the gloves are off. Babies are eaten, the house turns into an execution camp, it's all nuts, completely unhinged, and so good. The insane places it journeys to are a far cry from the quaint psychological thriller that was teased in the trailers. Number 2, Krampus. With Krampus, you have a big studio horror movie that's part Gremlins, part Silent Night, Deadly Night, and part National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And not just because, like those, it's a festive treat. The 80s-inspired horror stars Adam Scott as Tom, a dad trying to simultaneously give his kids a memorable Christmas and stop his extended visiting family from killing each other. His son Max, however, is at that age where the festive magic is beginning to wear off, and his lack of Christmas spirit accidentally conjures the bloodthirsty anti-Claus Krampus to his small town. While it's definitely a goofy comedy horror, director Michael Dougherty refuses to pull any punches despite how ridiculous the premise gets. By the time delightfully spooky animatronic Christmas presents start brutally attacking and murdering the family, it's clear that Max's accidental wish isn't going to be easily undone. Still, this is a Christmas movie after all, so you do expect everything to work out in the end, right? I mean, surely they'll all rally together, finding the true spirit of the season to fend off Krampus and his goons, right? Well, put simply, no. There are no happy endings to be found here. They all get coal in their stockings, and even worse. Number 1, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me had so much pressure riding on it, it's kinda silly. The film adaptation of the cancelled Too Early TV show, fans expected Fire Walk With Me to be a send-off for the series, a continuation that would answer the lingering questions and address Season 2's infamous cliffhanger ending. Of course, this is a David Lynch movie, and it was never going to be that simple. Instead, Fire Walk With Me actually serves as a prequel set before the start of the series. Still, surely the movie could remain a nice victory lap for fans, full of the same goofy soap opera shenanigans, coffee-loving detectives, and Black Lodge freaks. Well, no. Fire Walk With Me is a straight-up horror movie that's far nastier and more explicit than the TV show could ever be. Well, at least until The Return came around anyway. Without the reins of network TV, Lynch recalibrates Twin Peaks to be a pure hellscape, with even once recognizable and lovable characters now being foul-mouthed villains. There's no room for Dale Cooper's unwavering goodness here, and as a result, he doesn't even feature in the main plot. This is the tale of Laura Palmer's murder through and through, and the horrifying experiences that led up to it. It's brutal, dark, and throws the world fans loved into a murky, bleakly evil cesspit. And, I love it.